I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I get a motion please, that the agenda for March 10th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented? Councillor Chenard will make that. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Can I get a motion please that the minutes of February 25th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented? Councillor Wilkinson, any comments, any additions? All in favor? Okay, moving on. No delegations, reports from staff. Community and Protective Services, Public Transportation Strategic and for Social Transportation. And Tanya, you're going to do it?
Yes.
Do like I do when I don't know the word, I'll just skip it.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. You have the brief staff report that I've provided. Hopefully you've all had a chance to give it a read. Just a few small updates, I guess. Originally, when we developed the survey, we did it in consultation with ESTS. So they went through the questions and whatnot before we put it out there, and they were happy with what we'd come up with. The other thing that I'll let you know is that the survey you've probably seen is already active on social media. It's gone out. We have home care nurses that are taking it out to some of the individuals that are, more shut in and not able to probably get to the survey themselves. So we have that happening. McMahon Scope, our interagency group, is sending it out as well via email, and it's also on the social media sites. In addition to that, the only other update is that I've started gathering information to do benchmarking to see what other communities are doing. So I did, I sent it out province-wide through the FCSSAA Alberta, and I've gotten actually quite a few responses already on what other communities are doing. And really a lot of individuals are being provided with taxi vouchers where they pay half and they get half reimbursed by the municipality. So that seems to be a popular one for the smaller communities. And then there's also situations much like ESTS where municipalities are providing support, but maybe not everything. There's some legions involved in running transportation. It's really all over the place. So once we get the survey information back, we're also doing it at the tax clinic actually. So we've got it on an iPad there. So if people can take a few minutes when they're getting their taxes done, a lot of the individuals are in our target group that utilize that program, so we're hoping for really good feedback there. And ESTS also took 100 copies for the lodge and for those that ride the bus. Is there any questions?
Councillor Chenard?
I actually like the idea of this survey. The only thing that we have to be careful on, because you obviously talk to the other towns, so like Hinton, for example, where they're running more of a transit setup. So we would have to, I don't know, the funding model, seniors transportation bus would probably be game for it, but it would definitely cost us money. So I like the survey, but do we have a plan? If all of a sudden we're going, hey, wait a minute, we need to run a bus 7 days a week because the survey asks for it, or 2 buses daily. Because they, right now, they're catering to the regular customer, I guess would be the correct way of putting it. So I agree in a lot of cases, someone that could be needing the bus temporarily, or in the past where, let's say, students getting to school, people wanting to drive during the winter time. So maybe where we're doing this, I'd like information on what the potential cost could be of adding this service.
Through the chair, I know that Whitecourt and Hinton both have that type of municipal transit. Their communities are a little different with, the valley and up, and their issues are a little bit different than ours. This is really focusing more on those with unique needs, with low income, disability, that sort of thing, seniors. At this point, we're not really even seeking information from the general public about that sort of thing, because we really think that this is probably the most important need that we need to meet right now, and seeing if the needs are being met, because maybe they are, and if not, then what does that look like, or maybe the way we do the transportation grant system, maybe that changes. So at this point, I'm looking more with what can we do with what we have, and if we're really not meeting needs, then what is that going to look like for cost?
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I was just wondering if you have compared this to surveys in other communities? Like the length of it? I've done Gallup poll surveying, and this just seems very long. Like Vivian has asked me to come and help her over at the Evergreen buildings because, as she said, they're not computer literate, and to get through this is going to be quite the job with people. Like, is it longer than most?
Through the chair, I don't know if you would say most. I mean, I did go online and I researched a lot of different surveys. You know, I guess what I did is I picked and I chose the most pertinent information that I felt that we needed to make a decision. So yeah, I know it is a little bit lengthy. According to SurveyMonkey, it's like a 10-minute commitment to fill it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I do understand that it is lengthy, but at the same time, I think we really need good comprehensive information, so.
Okay, I just hope we all last.
I know, thank you for helping.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair to administration, I am a little concerned that I was taken by surprise by the survey and I didn't have an appropriate answer for my constituents as to why it was being done. So I would think it would be nice to be informed ahead of time before surveys go out. Secondly, as my second point is more towards the strategy after what comes out of this survey, and I strongly believe that you have a public transportation strategy, even if it is for social transportation, has to include commercial operators for taxis and tour buses, taxis and tour buses. Sorry. I think the strategy definitely needs to include bylaws for minimum standards that we expect from those commercial operators, as well as what we expect from non-profit operators. I think both sides of the equation can solve a lot of our problems, and I think we do need to raise the bar in what we expect from them.
Councillor Barr?
Through the chair to Tanya. Thanks for pursuing with the strategy. After reading through the survey, it was nice to know what it was all about. My only comments were that I just wasn't able to see ahead of time without completing the survey, and I didn't want to skew the results. So it's nice to be able to see it so I can kind of direct certain people towards it and kind of give them some idea of what we're looking for. So thanks.
Mayor Sayre?
Yes, through the chair, through to Tanya. I concur with what Councillor Sorensen said, that council needs to be informed about this before these things are sent out to the public, so I was a little disappointed in that. But I think the information you're gathering is really important as we talk about transportation needs. I think this is an ongoing conversation in our community about the gaps and where people need assistance. And getting that feedback from the public, I think, is really, really important. I guess my only concern is, I know this is targeted at individuals that may be vulnerable or seniors, but when it's online, how do you control that data? How do you know that individuals such as myself, for example, aren't going to fill out the survey, which could maybe not get the result that you're looking for by providing the perspective that you're not really looking for?
Okay, through the chair, with SurveyMonkey, you have the ability to, there's one question that states, you know, which demographic that you identify with, and if you click on the NA button, you get kicked out of the survey.
Okay.
And then we do, on the written copies, we have the same saying, you know, thank you, but, you know, we're looking for feedback from the specific demographic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think people, even though you've already stated that in vulnerable population, that's what you're looking for, if they want, they're just going to say no anyway and fill out the surveys. So that'd be my only caution. With paper surveys, you can be a little bit more selective on, you know, the demographic that you're trying to reach through working with ESTS and the Evergreens Foundation and the Parkland Lodge and that sort of thing. But I think online you have to be really careful if you're trying to do that targeted approach.
Councillor Schnart?
Just a follow-up, like the question one said, I am completing the survey independently. So with that said, And what we're hearing around the room, paper copies or not, so would we have the manpower or something, or the ability to go out to where we're targeting people in need? Because a lot of people, even myself, if I'm gonna fill out a survey online, sorry, I'm not interested. If I can do a paper one, I will. So putting myself in that group, if we have individuals that could go Parkland Lodge, Evergreen buildings, you know, even going down where people are and maybe encouraging them to help and have someone to help that we could ask the questions, would that help us to get a lot more results?
Through the chair, we have kind of gone down that road, and we do have partners that are doing that with us. Have we connected with every single group that's supporting these individuals? Probably not. But we have targeted some of the more specific groups to help with that. Yeah.
Then my other, can I follow up?
Go ahead.
So if you don't answer any of these questions, it's skewed, is what I'm hearing? So when you're filling, so if someone skips answering a question in their result, well, it says NA.
Because if you're not one of those people, they don't want you to fill it out. So
Soon
if you
as-
get that, it just kicks
So
in.
it's only the NA button
Yeah.
on question 3.
Right.
Okay, because I was looking, I go, because the one question says if you don't want to disclose your income, you hit that. So it's only the NA button.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one that will kick you out of the survey.
Okay.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, just one more question. Edson Senior Transportation having the bus already, do you target people that they already pick up and are their customers, just to get their input? Because they must have records of where they pick people up. And again, seniors in their homes, just to make sure they get a chance to fill out the survey.
Yeah, through the chair, we did give 100 paper copies to ESTS that they will distribute.
Distribute to the people.
Yeah, and also, we've also gotten their driver logs.
Good.
And so that it's going to be a lengthy process. They've given us some really good information, and just at first glance, there's actually a lot of places throughout the town that they do pickups and drop-offs.
Mhm.
And so it's really nice, because I think, people have assumptions and whatnot about where they do and don't go.
Mhm.
And so it's, really nice in partnership. We're working together to gather that data to say where are the most pickups and drop-offs, and where is there more need, and that sort of thing.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious what our percentage back will be from that when they fill it out on their own. Like, I don't know, I think it would be just unwieldy to have such a long survey in front of you to do. So just be curious what the results are coming back, or if somehow you could have somebody ride the bus and help them out or something. I don't know what the answer would be. But I think people are going to need help filling that out. I truly do. Thank you.
I guess, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, do you know, have you seen how many you've had so far? Are you able to track that?
Yeah, so on SurveyMonkey, as of about half an hour ago, we had 86 individuals had gone on. And the one thing that is becoming really apparent is that other individuals that don't qualify to do the
Yeah.
survey, they're interested in providing transportation feedback.
Yeah.
Because what did we have? 32 have been kicked out of the survey, so we've had 56 respondents so far online.
Let's cancel
Did we kick you out?
System.
And my apologies to all of you for not giving you the heads up that it was coming out.
No, okay, I guess I did get some feedback on this too, and I was aware you guys were putting out, 'cause I sit on that board there, and their trip sheets I know are very informative of where they've been. And a lot of people in town don't realize that they pick up, say, a dozen places or whatever, whether it's the schools or Brighter Futures or whatever, and how many trips they make throughout the day and stuff like that. And I guess I agree with Councilor Sorensen and Mayor Sahara about, I wish we would have known, and I would have liked to see, I don't know how we can do it, but maybe we can go out to the general public and see what they feel about it. Because I got a lot of people saying, well, we like to book the bus to, say, go to Edmonton, for example, take them out to the Speedway see all the Christmas lights. Can we do that, or is that just basically for the needy or low income, is what they're saying? And that we'd like to have a say too in that. And I got a lot of people actually make comments and stuff like that. And some said it was too invasive because you want to know their income and stuff like this and that. So I got a whole list here what they were saying, whether employed or not employed. But I ran into a lot of people that really liked it and said, you know, they like the bus services, they've been able to use it. It needs to be more sometimes. I've heard a lot of comments saying, please remove the senior from the bus and just make it the Edson transport service. Take out the seniors transportation because they feel it's just for seniors or, you know, low income people or whatever and that's why they don't even bother to use it. May or may not qualify in that. But so I've been telling people to fill it out and come up here and pick up paper copies. So feedback has been positive on most of it. So good job. I mean, it's a start. We had to start someplace, and I guess it's as good a place as any.
And through the chair, we also, there's about 5 packages of paper copies if anybody's interested in just taking an envelope full. And there's stickers on the front that say, you know, who to give them back to, what the deadline is, that sort of thing. So if anybody has a group that they would like to do that with, I think I put 10 in each envelope. So they're in the back at community services if anyone's interested.
So I know that the one daycare in town is using their bus to pick up after school kids and everything else and take them down there and that, but people don't realize that they can use that, but they have to pay per head, for example, to the Transportation Society. And they don't mind doing that because the school division really is not in favor of doing it anymore. So they have to go to other means, and so they're going to the seniors transportation. So I mean, it is helping out that way. So. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association, resolution for
Hey,
AGL.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Well,
Just
I
passed
am
over
sorry,
already.
I did not forget about you. Amending airport fees.
So yeah, we're proposing a fee increase on some of the landing fees and parking fees and whatnot at the airport facility. Some of it is due to the new carbon tax and whatnot that's come in at our Alberta Airport Managers Association. It has brought up a recommendation that airports increase their landing fees to accommodate the increase in carbon tax. It's been a common trend across Alberta with other airport facilities. Some of them are still in the process, some have recently completed it, such as Lloydminster and whatnot. In addition to that, over the last 4 years, we've also improved the service we've provided with purchase of new equipment, fencing and increasing the security of the facility. We've improved things like the aircraft parking facility. We put in some tie-down facilities. We brought the electrical services up to code and increased what's the word? Stability of the ground there, so that they can have better taxiing and parking and whatnot. So we feel, you know, with the increased level of service, plus to accommodate the increase in carbon tax, we're due to increase the rates and fees. I don't believe it's increased, especially for the parking fee for aircraft and whatnot. It's been about the same for the last 15 plus years. So it has been a very good fee for the last 15 years. It's due a small increase. That's our proposal.
Mayor Sahar?
Thank you through the chair to Sam. Thank you for your presentation. I'm in support of moving forward with these increases. I have a friend that lands here all the time, and he has often commented on how cheap our landing fees are based on some of the other areas that he lands at. In addition to that, we are the largest airport in the area, so you're either landing here or you're not. And I think we need to have cost recovery, some sort of cost recovery. As we know, community airports such as ours are underfunded with very little federal and provincial funding, as we've lobbied for at the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, and in the climate that we're in, doesn't look like that's going to change. And I think it's our airport's an important place in our community to drive economic development and activity, and we do need to recover those costs. My question is, have we had a discussion with Yellowwood County? I know we're the managing partner in this, but it is a 50-50 cost split operation. What did they have to say about this? Are they they're okay with it?
I've approached Don there at the county and explained to him our proposal, and they're in full support.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair to administration, I'm not in favor of changing a number just because it hasn't been changed in a number of years, but I am in full support of, like the mayor said, user pays or cost recoveries, so even if it's just a set percentage. So I would like to know what you mentioned the impact of the carbon tax on your budget. I would like to know what that is. And I would also like to know what the improved runway maintenance costs have gone up due to this increased maintenance schedule. And then do you have an estimate of what these new fees would raise in additional revenue per year? Like, would that match what these additional costs?
I don't believe the amount that the overall amount of revenue that we generate is going to have a massive impact on our operating costs. It's really not going to recover a massive percentage. It's just, I guess, a reasonable increase. We want to be very diligent on deterring people from using the facility as well. You want to make money off the small amount of people that you do get. I prefer to increase the volume instead. So we are just trying to keep it to a reasonable amount, not really looking at it as a revenue recovering all our operational costs. We're not really looking at it that way. Some of the impacts on the recent changes, obviously purchase of the new runway maintenance equipment, that's a large expenditure, and the change in de-icing materials we use, again, that was a massive increase. That was nearly 4 times the cost of using the original chemical of urea. So the operational costs have definitely increased. I think we've actually kept it to quite a minimal, actually maintained the annual total of the operating costs relatively close to what they were originally, by just the level of work that we're putting in to keep the cost of the chemical and whatnot down. But the level of service has changed without a doubt. I don't know if that helps any.
Councillor Bear?
Through the chair to Sam, thanks for the presentation. And as Mayor Zahara has mentioned, we've lobbied the government. We've lobbied the government through AUMA to help out with our airport fees, and we'll see where that goes. But I appreciate that you've looked at the fees, especially since it's been quite a while, and reevaluated them. And I'm glad that we're still competitive, but that we're not overcharging, and that we're reasonable. Is there any way, so you said that there's a possibility or trying to increase your usage. Is there any opportunities out there in increasing our volume?
There are on the commercial front. We've seen a slight increase on the commercial side. We've seen a drop off on the private aircraft. Mainly, I believe that to be economic. So I think it will turn around with the economy. Already we're hearing private guys that are willing or wanting to build hangars at the airport in this coming year, whereas they postponed it over the last 2 years because of the economy issues. So I think things are starting to roll again. Last year the weather didn't help either because of the heavy rain. People don't like to fly in the rain. So one of the other issues that one of the other areas brought up there in the report is the car park in the corner that used to be leased by Luscar. That was $12,000 a year that we were earning on that revenue that we lost when they cancelled that lease. Part of that reason, the infrastructure they put that in, or the original leasees put that infrastructure in, but they let it go. So it got to a state of ill repair. They didn't want, the new leasees didn't want to bring it up to standard, and so they cancelled the lease, and we lose that revenue. We've done some work there, and we want to start recovering some of that revenue loss. The best way for us to do that is introduce a vehicle parking fee. Once we had the fee in place, we can then advertise it out to hopefully use that space that is already there, already prepared for vehicle parking. We just want to get it out there and actually be able to use it. So we needed a fee established for that.
Councillor Schnard?
Through the chair. On parking, just one comment, then a question. The 2,000 kgs, most people won't understand that. We don't want them confused, so I would use the term large and small, like at regular airport. So I'm just looking, I know what aircrafts do with that. The other one is too, where do you buy the tickets? So it says $5 a day. So let's say somebody flies somewhere or they leave their vehicle and for whatever reason they're stranded. They're not going to be back in a day. They'll be longer. Does they have any ability that they can phone and say, hey, you know what? This blue GMC pickup parked here. I only bought a 1-day pass. Please don't ticket and tow me, because we get a lot of complaints, people being ticketed and towed. Do they have any way of calling and saying, hey, you know what? Here's my visa or whatever. Can you bump me up to the $100 or something?
Yeah. They most of the people who use the car park have my contact number anyway, and the town office is obviously open, so you just need to phone up and
And where do
establish
you
that.
buy these tickets at?
It would be here. We'd sort it out up here. The payment would be made here.
Okay, so then I guess if you fly in on Saturday, and I'm meeting a plane, I pull in on Saturday, there is any ability that they can buy it, or just leave a note, or what do they do?
Yeah, and so this is the airplanes or the vehicles? So
The vehicles. So I'm thinking a lot of people, let's say they're going to park, 3-4 people get together, they're going to go jump on a plane.
Yeah.
They meet there. So that's the people that are still. Some people are still mad to this day.
Yeah.
I left my vehicle parked there. They towed it away and gave me a big fine. So I'm saying, oh, you know what? That's the loss of the day. But if you do pull in and you're meeting people there,
Yeah.
and you're going to get on a plane. Where do you buy the ticket? And if you go past your day for whatever reason, there's stormy weather, you can't get back, instead of getting your vehicle tagged and towed,
Yeah.
you can phone and say, hey, you know what, is it possible to extend it?
Yeah, so as far, we don't necessarily sell tickets per se. We invoice out, we do that daily anyway with the aircraft, so doing it for vehicles would be no additional workload in that aspect. We already perform that service. And yeah, it'd be a case of phoning the town office, phoning myself, letting me know that the time frame has changed, that you want to move it to a month. We quite often contact them, same for the aircraft, people leave it there, get weathered in or whatever, and they've left it there for over a month. You know, we'll say to them, look, it's actually more in your benefit to, instead of paying the daily rate, to pay a monthly rate instead. But, you know, we provide that recommendation as it is.
Councillor Curry?
Through the chair, I fully support increasing, definitely with the increase in carbon tax and such. My only concern with the fee increases is there doesn't seem to be like a percentage standard. So it seems to be, I would like to see if we're doing this increase, then we're doing that same kind of percentage increase across the board with that idea of, okay, our expenses have increased by this much, so we need to see it. It kind of seems to be a little more random in the sense of one is doubled, one is a little bit. So I would prefer to see fees that had a percentage strategy behind why they were increased.
Yeah, I agree. It's very difficult. The industry is very diverse on the fees. There isn't any sort of standard for the fees being charged from one facility to the other. The rate of increase, I looked at it, basically I was looking at what we already charge per month. So for example, on the airplane parking, I didn't feel we needed to increase the daily rate or even the monthly rate. I think, did we increase the monthly rate? But we just needed to increase the annual rate. You know, we're charging $5 a day, but if you paid for the annual fee, only less than $1 a day. And so that was the issue. It wasn't a percentage increase across the board. It was on elements of the fees where they just didn't add up properly. You know.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Through the chair, I was going to ask the same thing there. With your monthly fee, it's doubled in both cases for
Yeah.
the 2,000 kilograms and the over 2,000, which to me seems it would be nicer to do it just incrementally in a smaller portion. If it was me, I wouldn't want to have to pay double on that. And I also wondered why you use Lloydminster and Dawson Creek as your comparables.
I'm not sure if the new rates are actually in the spreadsheet. So they were just making changes. I knew through the association they were just about to make changes. I know Lloydminster completed their changes to their rates and fees. I believe they went up to $18 a landing fee.
Okay, I just, like, White Court seems to be the place where
White
other
Court's
people
free.
fly from, so it would be nice to know what they charge.
So
They're free?
White Court are free, completely free. So
So then that's our
where
competition. And
that's where the
so
diversity
to double our
comes
fee.
in. Yeah, so that's where diversity comes in across the board. White Court don't do any cost recovery. They feel the administrations behind recovering the landing fees is detrimental to the actual landing fees themselves. Then their lease rates are higher on property, stuff like that. So yeah, it's really down to owner's preference. It's a kind of an odd one. Do all the research out there, there seems to be no pattern
But
involved.
when it's our competition, you just think we do want to value our airport and have it used, so maybe we have to look into something different.
Councillor Sorensen, Mayor Sayer.
And through the chair to administration, I agree with Councillor Curry's comment that I believe we should have a set goal for the percentage of cost recovery in this facility. Like we have a set goal for Repsol. We're not getting full cost recovery, but a goal, a percentage goal would be nice, and then we can start strategizing whether we should be charging daily parking fees or if we should just, like White Court does, just increase the monthly leases and recover costs that way.
Mayor Sayer.
Yeah, through the chair, through to Councillor Wilkinson's point, I think that's a good philosophical. Yeah.
It's one of those days,
Yeah,
it's okay.
I can't, philosophical questions that, it's kind of like Coal Lake, and they're trying to attract more tournaments and stuff, so they have
Right.
much lower fees than most other places.
Mhm.
It's just the way that they want to go, and I think for us, is that the way we want to go, and have the taxpayers pay a bigger burden, and the leases pay a bigger burden. White Court is a different example. They have a lot more activity with the Fox Creek area. They have a lot more hangars. They are actually one of the largest airports with helicopters in the province. Is that the reason? I don't know what it is. I think it comes down to we have some responsibility here to make sure that users are helping fund these facilities. We don't want to price ourselves out, but we still, I think, from my perspective, need to continue to bring those revenues in so we can provide those services. If we don't have those revenues coming in, it's only going to take away from something else that we have to budget for. And if you're landing in Edson, you're landing in Edson for a reason. If you're landing in White Court, you're landing in White Court for a reason. I don't think you're necessarily going to be shopping, because if you have to go to Hinton and you're going to land in White Court, you're just increasing your transportation time and your transportation costs from White Court to Jasper. So you're still going to choose Edson, and I think we have a captive audience in terms of trying to recoup some of those fees. And I don't think we're priced out of the market either. I think that we're probably on average of what other municipalities are paying, based on what I've talked to different aviators out there. A double price in monthly and yearly parking, I can see, is a shock. But when you're low, you have to get there somewhere, and I'd rather just rip off the Band-Aid and say, this is the way it's going to be. Or we say, give them time, say starting January 1st, we're increasing the fees to this amount so you can prepare yourself accordingly. That might be an option for council to consider if that is a concern.
Can I just reply to Mayor Zahara? Ma'am?
Sure.
Okay, so, yeah, I agree with you, like, it shouldn't have to be that users aren't paying. But that double, to me, it doesn't even make it an attractive airport. And we have talked before trying to get it as a commercial airport. Last meeting, we had Pamela Pipeline talk to us that this is the area that's going to develop. Let's just make sure that we're not just so annoying with doubling our fees that they don't come and settle here. I think that is a real put off. I do think, as the two councillors have said, we have to figure out what our costs are, we have to figure it out and do it incrementally. I don't think we can just double it because we think that that's what the cost is.
If I may,
Go
Councillor,
ahead.
Deputy Mayor Brevin, just it's related to the mayor and Councillor Wilkinson's comments there. I'm not sure the exact arrangement with White Course Airport in terms of the county involvement or the cost sharing or those types of situations as well, but I think we've heard from our neighbors there that they are under some extreme fiscal pressure, and so zero fee facilities probably are not something that are going to continue in their future, and we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we've placed ourselves at a fiscal disadvantage by doing that. And my general feeling from council is that user fees are the preferred model wherever possible. And so administratively, we just feel this recommendation is in line with what we've heard from council time and time again on issues of a similar nature. So, that was just some context for. Just because a place has 0 fees doesn't necessarily mean that's a good model or that's functional for them moving forward. There's going to be some big challenges there.
Councillor Schnard.
Through the chair, when we're saying setting goals and stuff, but I know we've been talking about the airport for some time, and years ago when we lobbied to get the airport, our goal was to get a big one in. So partially is, I agree, we gotta up the fees, but on the same token, we gotta be careful we're not chasing away the people that are there. Because like it's commented in the room, the planes land in Edson because that's their destination. So, I mean, the parking I'm fully in favor of. Upping the fees marginally is a cost of doing business, but what that'll do is, of course, costs get passed on. So setting goals to get total cost recovery, I believe, is impossible. We do know through our budgeting, we've all seen budgets, so we know what the airport, and it's not bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, council, whoever built this airport in the first place had a goal in mind, and every council since then, including this council here, we're all in favor of the airport, but we can't change economical times.
No.
So we had goals of looking at a WestJet or some kind of airline landing here. So by setting our prices not too high, we want to attract that people, like this private individuals are gonna fly, depends where they're flying to. So we need to be, you know, competitive. If Whitecourt's 0, I don't know what on plane is 0. So we need to be fair, but not outrageous. So if someone does come looking, I think with the activity we have here, and a lot of planes fly in to be tourists, because the odd time we'll see a jet there and go, hey, who's this? And it's so, but we're hoping they'll tell their friends, and it'd be nice throughout the summer to have 20 private jets land here throughout the summer and spend time. So setting goals, I believe, is very difficult to do.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I'd just like to challenge that assumption that people coming to Edson have to come to fly to Edson. Are we ever a stopover on the way from, let's say, Calgary to Grand Prairie or Calgary to northern BC? Are we a fueling stop for fixed wings or something?
So there's the different users. So with the fee structure the way it is and the way we propose to, even with the changes proposed, private aircraft still remain free. The smaller private guys still end up landing for free. They're just paying for the parking fee. The biggest attraction for them is fuel. They'll avoid high fuel prices. The fuel prices here are kind of out of our control. We do have had a couple of discussions to help that, but for the most part we don't provide the fuel, third party does, so they control that. But it does impact drastically our attractiveness, if you like, and they will avoid us if the fuel's too high. Mm-hmm. For the most part though, yeah, they'll fly from Edmonton, land here on the way to fly over Jasper. There's restrictions of landing in Jasper, so they can't. They have to be able to make it back again. So Hinton's Jasper Hinton Airport is unpredictable sometimes with the weather patterns that they get. So again, it pushes the traffic to us a little bit more. Commercial side of things, again, there's the Alberta Health Service use it a lot for the medevac and patient transfers. Again, the landing fees don't really impact them too much. They factor that into their contracts. The large aircraft too, for the most part, they're used to getting landing fees at the international airports that are far beyond, and I've often been questioned by them and asked why we don't charge more. So yeah, so far the feeling has been that we are, or have been, very low on our fees. So it's.
Can I just follow up? Just to clarify, is there any routes from, say, Calgary to Grand Prairie or Calgary in northern BC where a plane or a helicopter could choose between Whitecourt and Edson, depending on fees?
Based on fees, I don't know of any. I couldn't provide any specific users that run specific routes. And why they would choose one over the other. Again, it end up coming down more to fuel. fuel price more than it would landing fees.
Okay.
I think if I may add to that,
Yeah.
I think two comments. One is I think if council is interested in expanding this into a bigger philosophical question, that's something certainly administration's happy to do. I'm not sure Sam was prepared to go in that direction this evening, although happy to engage that conversation. But second piece of feedback as well is that competitiveness is not just fee-based, is right, it can be service-based as well. And if they always know your runway is clear and they trust the quality of the service that they're going to get there, they might be willing to pay their fees. And so there's a lot of different ways to differentiate yourself as a place of choice, and fees are only just a small portion of that. And I think typically we have provided a really high level of service for a small regional airport, and so for some users, Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, their choice to land in Edson is based more on the service level rather than the fee package. And so it's more than just a one variable question.
Through the chair, I can support that. West Fraser, they use us almost on a weekly basis, and they've expressed that they've actually asked their company to position their vehicles here in order to reach Whitecourt and Hinton because of our level of service during the winter months. And they're so impressed with the runway condition throughout the winter that they actually want their vehicles positioned here and will drive to Whitecourt and drive to Hinton. They use an aircraft that lands at high speed, and they're actually helping us to provide that little bit extra service as well.
That's what we're going to hear.
Mayor Zahar?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Sorensen. I think an important thing for us to keep in mind too is our airport is strategically located within our boundaries. So there's a captive audience that if they do need to stay overnight or whatever, they're close to services within the community. You're not going to get that in a Whitecourt, Woodlands County airport. You're not going to get that in several other airports throughout northern Alberta, which makes us attractive. And I would hate for us to give up revenue opportunities by those that are actually benefiting and using that service. I think we need to do what's fair on both sides of the equation for both municipal taxpayers who get very little benefit directly from the airport, but at the same time still trying to attract that kind of activity within our community.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, I completely agree. I have no problem with raising the fees if they're justified with additional costs. But I think we should have a set percentage goal for cost recovery so that if carbon taxes, heaven forbid, double and quadruple over the next few years, we'll have a justified reason to raise these kinds of fees as well. And and as well, when our taxpayers say, why is our landing fee doubling? I can say it's because carbon tax raised our costs by X%, and I just like a strategy. Thank you.
Mayor Zahar?
Through the chair to Councillor Sorensen, I concur with that. I think that within all of our service delivery models that we should be having, whether that's 35%, 50% for each mechanism, I think that would be a really good way to go and then build our budgets back from that.
Councillor Curry?
Through the chair, I would just add to that I think that this is more than the percentage of the carbon tax. That I think, Sam, you've made it very clear that we are below to begin with. So I think that it's just okay to say that, hey, we're doing this original percentage to get us into a more marketable, fair price. And then on top of that, because I think right now it's not fair to say that it's just a percentage based on the carbon tax. We have heard loud and clear that we're low. And so I think that that's fair to say that we also are bringing it up to make it more comparable.
If I may, thank you. And I think on the bigger picture in terms of the general approach to fees is in a sense, one of the strategies that can be applied here is just every fee in the fee and rate bylaw gets a percentage increase every single year, and that's one way to go with that. Unfortunately, we're stuck in a situation where some fees have not been addressed for many years, and so even if we were just to add inflationary costs to some of those, as well as service changes and equipment changes, I think we're just at a place where there's a gap that has to be addressed. Administration is perfectly happy to entertain some of these larger conversations, like I said, about a strategic position, and so that we don't find ourselves 10 years down the road doing the same kind of jump forward in fees, rather taking a more consistent approach over time, which is certainly what I favor as well. And so we're, I think, can do both, accomplish both pieces there.
Yeah, I just like to say, when I see a plane land here, if I'm out and about, I do stop in there and I do talk to the pilots and that, because I'm always curious where they come from. And I've heard nothing but good stuff about our airport, like our service and where everything is cleaned up and the hospitality we give them and the pickups and that. And I obviously haven't heard any bad comments from anybody that there. The pilots usually wants us sitting back in the lounge there waiting for everybody to come back and that, or the oil field people. And I agree with what's been said around the table here. So do you have enough information now to go back and put something together?
I think just to be clear, council would like to see this come forward for...
Yeah.
Yeah.
All sorts.
Through the chair, I would like administration to summarize what you heard tonight, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sam, you want to take a first crack at it? Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I think, we can do, I think we need to find a base level first before we just move up by a percentage. That was the first aspect, is that, as you said, we are low and there's been some increases in service provided that can't be factored into a carbon tax increase percentage. So we need to find a base level that we can then move forward with those percentage increases. But we can certainly come back with a more detailed outlook on that if we can somehow. We can find a way.
Here's there.
Through the chair, through to Sam, do we know what our cost recovery right now is for user fees? And how much is subsidized by the town of Edson and Yellowwood County and the other funding mechanisms?
Off the top of my head, the data would be difficult to pull up. I know that the land leases are the major contribution for cost recovery. Obviously, they're pulling in 90% of it. The landing fees is very small. I think we're talking at the moment for our 16. We put 12 to 1500 movements a year. We make around 20 grand, 19 to 20 grand a year. Considering, I think our budget is nearly 500,000. That's a very small percentage. So the landing fees are really not performing any cost recovery of any significance to be concerned about. The land leases are where we make any real significant cost recovery.
Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, through to Sam, just for consideration before this comes back to council. I think having a look at what those leases and the fees are in comparison to what's being subsidized by taxpayers, what that percentage is, and then we can maybe as a council benchmark, okay, right now the cost recovery based on existing fees is 20%. We want to get up to 25%. How do we accomplish that? Maybe that's over a period of time, I don't know, but that's something that I think administration should think about before it comes back to council, from my perspective.
Councilor Barr?
Through the chair, I also agree with Mayor Zahara's comment.
I think we're all in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Okay.
Fun.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, moving on. Trans-Canada Yellowwood Highway Association resolution for AGM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Thank you for allowing me to present the resolutions that we prepared from your January 21 resolutions to us. These resolutions address both highway maintenance within the town limits of Edson, as well as the additional funding or potential for us to install traffic lights at certain locations which have been predetermined already through studies. If council finds these resolutions acceptable, we will bring these forward to the next council meeting for approval so that they can go forward to the AGM in a timely fashion. If you have changes or additions, please let us know what those are, and we will include them for the council meeting next week.
Councilor Chouinard.
The wording is good. I mean, there's no use beating it to death. I brought these forward. I believe we're getting the point. I'm glad you didn't use real difficult words, so when I'm spelling this out, it's virtually explanatory, and I do like the follow-up letters that this has been long-term. So I think the information you gathered, I know, unless you intend, I can work with these, so thank you for bringing it forward.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, to administration, I'm in full support of this. Councillor Chenard has mentioned in the past that this group is designed to increase speed and transportation along the L-heads. So I'm wondering how much support he believes we will receive on these resolutions.
Through the chair, you want me to answer this question?
Sure, go ahead.
Glad you brought it up. The first thing they said to me, Gene, understand, our goal is to speed up traffic. My answer was, our goal is also to keep the highways safe. So at a lot of times where they put in traffic circles, so an example of something, we're all in agreement, we want these lights. So an example is like in Jasper, where the kiosk boxes at both ends and the merge lanes, that was this, Yellowhead Highway Association lobbied for them. So you brought up a good point. It was brought to my attention that speed, but I said also safety. So I'll have a challenge in my hand, but I'm confident they're going to help us.
Any other questions? I guess I just got a comment here in that this came up here in that, and I know one of the councillors for Jasper also said that when they lobbied Trans-Canada Highway Association for lights at the park gates and stuff like that, they had a hard time getting them. Once Trans-Canada Highway Association got involved on it, they got their lights at the gates and everything else they wanted in that. Before they were just kind of barking up a dead tree and that. So they were quite happy that we were putting this in and that, so good work. Anything else?
Through the chair, I'd like to say I support this 100%, and I think it's long overdue.
Agreed. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Number 3, road study notification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Notification of capital funding usage. We do have within our capital plan about $1.2 million that's put towards recapping programming for the town. So that's intended to address a variety of maintenance related issues and paving projects, which are meant to lower capital costs in the sense that we're not doing full reconstructions where we don't have to. We're extending the life of our infrastructure and actively utilizing our asset management system to ensure that we're making every dollar last. In reviewing how this system has been set forward in a few other places, we've determined that undertaking a study of subgrade is well worth our funds to determine exactly whether we approach recapping or certain types of surface improvements in a different way. And so for when we're initializing this first year of capping, we do want to undertake that study. The study is about $600,000 based on what we've seen in the market. It may come in less. However, that should probably net us our funds back more over the next 2 years, and it's about a 5-year study. It's relative for at least 5 years. We could extend that further, but that's a cycle we'll get into. So, with that, we're just simply informing you that we would not be planning to use all of the monies strictly for black pavement this year, and that's just to make sure that every time we do spend the money in the coming years, we're spending it in a appropriate fashion in the appropriate places where we're not wasting those funds in the long term.
There's the air.
Thank you, through to Martino. Thanks for this. I actually agree with doing a study. I am not happy though, because we have not done any paving last year. And I think our road network needs some serious help this year, especially with the wet weather that we had last year. So while I do agree a study probably should be done to give us that information, and I'm assuming it would be integrated within our asset management system and the mapping, I really think we should be putting $1.2 million into blacktop. We know which roads are in really poor shape right now in town, in order to smooth out our roadways, because as we've seen outside our jurisdiction on the highway, the wet weather last year has created chaos, and I think we need to put every dollar into blacktop this year in order to provide a level of service that our constituents and our public wants. And then I could see us down the road, maybe next year, doing that study to get a better handle on it as a part, and have that discussion before we just spend half of our capital project on a plan. And I don't know how many communities actually do these sorts of plans, or you know, I need more information than what I got here. Thank you.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to CAO. I'm not sure if it's just a interesting choice of words in this proposal, or if it was meant for those words, but is administration notifying us that they're going to spend half of the capital budget on a plan, when I think it's quite clear we expected it to be spent on road recapping? Or are you asking us for support?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Sorensen. Yes, this is the exact reason this item is before you. As this plan has been developed through our engineering department, I think the intent is clear, that the overall effort is to expend resources in the most efficient way possible. They have come to the belief that this study will allow them to do that over the next number of years. It was very clear to me that that was not what council was aware of, and so this item was before council for awareness. Obviously, it's always at council's prerogative to provide feedback, and so we're open to that feedback at this stage. But my minimum requirement was that council was made aware that that was the intention for this process moving forward. We're still at a stage where I think we can be responsive to feedback that we receive here.
Councillor Chenard.
I would also, believe it or not, I agree with you guys both. The 600,000 has to be spent. We're recapping the study later. My concern is, which I brought it up during budget time, it's been the last several years where we've lacked in spending. So I would want to see one more nickel spent to a study, and let's do action. There's some of the roads we don't need to study, like all of our First Avenue, meaning it from east to west and over there, needs to be done. And I would like, because I know where $2 million was taken out of roads to pay for another project. So if that money does come back, we should be putting it in, and next year we should look at the 2 million plus and spend 4 million on roads, because 2 million, because we've lacked, and I have to agree with the mayor's comment, part of Highway 16's problem, it rained all summer. So if their highway is going to be in bad shape, just think what our streets are going to be like. You know, so we need to spend as much money as possible recapping and working on roads.
Good.
And Mr. Chairman, just as a point of information for council, we did send this out to get the feelers for cost pricing. So this report's based on what we understand this type of study usually costs based on our kilometers of road. We are not at a point where we need to accept any bids that we get, but it will give us a solid idea of what the actual cost is for that type of a study. So either way, if council directs us not to undertake this use of the funds for the capital program, we'll have that backup information as information.
Chair.
Through the chair, through to Martino administration. I think the philosophy behind what you're trying to accomplish here is good, but I am totally in disagreement with doing it this year. I think we need to spend the $1.2 million on road recapping. Through to Councillor Chenard's point, First Avenue is a different program altogether, because that's a complete rebuild. This is just road recapping. On some of our other streets, we're already doing some design work for the road rebuild on First Avenue, which we know is a major priority and that'll be a major capital project. But I think that this year we need to get as much paving as as possible done, and try out this new program, and then bring this forward either through the budgetary process or through strategic planning on whether or not we want to do that in the next budget year. But this year, my expectation is, and I think the expectation from the public is that we get some paving done in this community, where we have been lacking, I think, over the last little while.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I see the value in this kind of a study. I am kind of doubtful that we'll ever have $600,000 to spend on a study. So I'm wondering, is there any way we could split this over 6 years or something and do $100,000 a year and do the high priority areas first? Because I just can't see us ever having $500,000 that we could just spend on studies.
Sorry, if I may, Martino. Thank you, Councillor Sorensen. I think certainly breaking it up is possible. I think there's a couple of challenges to that. One is you may lose some efficiency in your mob and demob. You're losing some there, as well as Mr. Verhage suggested there. Study veracity is limited because it obviously is taking into account general ground conditions, and those change over time. And so, by the time you get to your 6th year, it would be difficult to now use that comparative data to make decisions over which road is better to replace, because the new data is being outpacing the old data in a comparative sense. And so there's another option here, certainly, if council is in favor of the study, as well as $1.2 million saving. Administration could also recommend additional funding options where both of those could be accomplished as well. I think what we're cautious of, and this is through to the mayor's as well as everyone's point, is we're certainly aware that there are some roads that are in need of some work, but one of the risks is if you repair the tops of roads without really understanding what's going on underneath, it's potential for that repair or that money to not be as effective in the long term. And so that's one of the concerns that we have is we can do our best, we can make our assessments, but the surface condition is not always the best indicator of where the right investment might need to be made. And I don't know, Martino, if you have anything to add to that. But
Mr. Chairman, yeah, all I was going to state was we can definitely provide a more detailed report with regards to different options, but as the CIO mentioned, without having the full study in place, which is telling us strategically where the best way to spend our money is and what sequence those roads should be done in, we are actually undermining the benefit of even doing the study, because we're only looking at 1/3 of the roads or 1/5 of them. But we can definitely make sure we provide additional information or consider the option for additional budgeting if that's requested.
Councilor Barry had a question?
Yes, through the chair to administration. I also struggle with not spending any money on roads this year after not doing as much in the previous years, but I do realize the importance of it. Can you say in a little detail what this looks like? Is this something where the staff are accomplishing the project, or is this the third party is coming out to do the work? Are you putting big holes everywhere? What does this look like?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chairman, I guess not to be overly complex about it, it's essentially ground penetrating radar, where they would establish what the moisture levels, structure levels of the ground is at various meters of depth, so we can assess whether we have water leaks, groundwater infiltration, subgrade degradation, etc. And then they would then provide us with a recommendation based on the condition of that subgrade as to what the best topical treatment is and which roads are best saved now and which ones are probably left for later.
And I'll just add to that, it's just something that would be done through a third party. There's some sophisticated equipment that obviously goes along with this. It's a Google Earth looking type van that drives around town, and it's basically almost like an ultrasound type technology that they're getting a feel for the ground conditions. But it's done by a third party with use of that equipment.
Councilor Curry?
Thank you. Through the chair, like everyone else has said, I always support a study that makes us make smart financial decisions, but I don't think at this current time that it's the best decision. And before I could ever support it, I would need to see more detail about the financial gain of doing the study and how fast we'd get that back. So you mentioned that other communities have done it and it seems to be the market. I need more money associated with that to show kind of how much money we're saving by doing this, and just more financial information to be putting $600,000 out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilkinson?
Through the chair and more to administration. When I was on council the prior term and we had a certified engineer, we had a plan in place to do road rehab. And I don't know what this information was based on, but it had to be based on something where we were methodically going through and doing the sewer and water and the street services. And then we seemed to put a bid in too late. We never did it one year and then not the next year. And I really think somewhere we must have some statistics about what would be the best place to work on. And I do believe the taxpayers deserve a proper road repair system. I think it's a high priority in any town. And to me, it's just a lot of money for a lot of studies. And I would have thought that we had capable people able to tell us maybe where there is a high priority and work on that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. So just a few pieces that. So some of the major capital upgrades which resulted in road reconstruction in the past, in my time and then a few years before that, they were driven more by the condition of the underground infrastructure, the water and sewer, and not the road. We do not have a detailed road study that's done, nor do we have anyone now or ever who was capable of doing the type of analysis that we're suggesting be done here. The interest of this study is to ensure the long-term quality of that roadway that you suggest that the taxpayers of Edson are deserving of, which is exactly why administration is recommending this, because we feel it would be an important piece to ensure that we're setting ourselves up to provide the best quality infrastructure over a period of time. If you'll remember, when we introduced the asset management plan to council, one of the challenging pieces were that some of the infrastructures were just age graded and not assessment graded, and that's one level of analysis. This just is adding a whole nother element of condition assessment, which is the better analysis of a piece of infrastructure. And when we're talking about limited resources, our intent here is to ensure that every single dollar spent is producing the highest value it possibly can. Please don't misunderstand. I'm certainly one that you'll hear. I am cautious of studying and studying and studying and studying, and we want to make sure that we're active in rehabilitating, and that was certainly a lively discussion at the administrative level of what the balance is in those pieces. I'll just add this to say, administratively, we are 100% committed to the study being the best possible way to ensure good investment. As I mentioned before, the reason this is before council is because it was understood by myself that council expected to see $1.2 million of new pavement, whatever that looks like, and so I didn't feel comfortable that if we went forward at this stage without this additional conversation, that we wouldn't be, I think, following through appropriately on the direction we were given from council. And so at this point, this is the exact type of feedback that I think was intended to be the type of dialogue that was intended by bringing this report forward. So it's very much appreciated.
Can I reply?
Okay, then Councillor Sorensen.
Okay, thanks. I agree that this study is, I'm sure, absolutely the best way to do anything. And I just think in these economic times, and we've already paid for a study for our wages, different things. And like 1.2 million really isn't going to get us very far anyway, but each year we get further and further back. We didn't do any road rehab last year, we didn't do it the year before, I believe. So we are going to end up like Highway 16 there with just a big mess. And I just don't think it's going to be appropriate for our town to be in that disrepair.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the intent here is, as I mentioned before, surface condition is not necessarily the best indicator of which roads are at risk, and or to ensure the appropriate type of repair is done, additional information could be helpful. So we will obviously endeavor to spend the $1.2 million in the best possible way, whether that's direct rehabilitation of pavement and or some study work, but we're just saying we will be limited in our ability to guarantee that we are picking the best roads or applying the appropriate treatment to the road, and that's the risk, is if we just resurface a road but the subsurface is degraded, then that investment is going to be limited in its longevity and in its ultimate value, and certainly it's our intention to provide the best quality roads for the best value and with the taxpayers ultimately in mind there, and so it is not lost on us that the road networks need work. This is why administration came forward in the first place and said, hey, maybe we, I guess I just don't want council to lose sight of the fact that it was administration that came forward and said, hey, we think we need to address the road networks and perhaps we need to focus on that for the next few years. That was an administration driven initiative that was brought forward for council's consideration in the first place. So we're certainly very well aware of the fact that the roadways can use some intensive investment in order to ensure their integrity and to make sure that, again, that taxpayers are being appropriately served.
Councilor Bear?
Through the chair to administration, following Councillor
sorry.
Curry's comment, do you know, would you be able to gather that information? Is that information able to be gathered within a reasonable amount of time, that if we spend 600,000, how quickly that gain could be recovered? I've got a few questions. How quickly the gain could be recovered, and what is the timeline on this type of project? Does it take months to gather the information? When would council, if we did proceed with this, when would we expect to receive feedback on that in order to impact, 2021's budget?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that if we undertook this study based on our projected timeframe, we're anticipating to have the study completely returned to us with the analyzed report by approximately July, which meant that we would be able to do some ideal paving in August with the remainder of the budget for recapping, which would then also be available by the time we got to before we got into like the detailed budget. So we probably have done some initial thought process on capital, but the way that our capping program is set up is we have a certain base amount. This would essentially tell us which roads we would be doing then for the next 5-6 years. So we actually have a map to tell people where our ideal move forwards are based on, of course, bid prices in those coming years. So it would be useful immediately within the 2021 year, both budget and then also because the budget shouldn't change, and programming, but it would take until the summer. With regards to what we understand of the detailed information right now, or the value of the study, I could definitely task our capital projects managers done a variety of in-depth examination into this particular study, and have him provide you with an additional information report at the next committee meeting if that's necessary or wanted.
Councilor Sorensen?
Through the chair, I am a firm believer in our asset management plan, and I know that kind of computer mathematical model requires good data that goes into it. So I am supportive of this kind of a study. Like I said, I am not supportive of spending $600,000 this year on it. And if administration is adverse to spending or splitting out over multiple years, I would be in support of putting maybe 200 or 300 of our current budget away, and then next year spending all of it on this kind of a full program.
Councilor Curry?
Through the chair, I would like to see the different options to move forward with 1.2, and then if we were to pull the 600 out of reserves, or where we might find that additional funds if we were to do it in the same year. Thank you.
Councilor Schnard?
We're doing a road study, but have we did a study on our infrastructure underneath? Because the most important part to this town is infrastructure. The road could be fine, but the infrastructure, the problem we've all ran into in the past, if you pave Main Street, 6 months later you get a sewer or a water break. We have no idea what's under there. So I'm agreeing with the study in a principle, but the most expensive stuff was we should be looking at a study of our true infrastructure underneath the paving area. Because I guess the factor I have, we live in Edson. I would hate to see some of them studies. They're going to go over them to, let's say, Edmonton Standard versus Edson. Your substructure is not great, but you need to dig 90 feet to make it great. So in some way I'd be terrified to see this study on how the pavement and the substructure.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the pieces of information that we do have is some assessments and some conditioning based on age for the underground infrastructure. That is a key variable that's considered before you do any kind of rehabilitation, is consideration of what's underneath of it.
Councilor Bear?
Through the chair to administration, I would also like to see this brought back to another committee meeting with additional information provided.
Any other questions? I don't have any. They've been asked and answered, so no use beating us up again. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, moving on. Number 4, Rita update.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer to my senior manager, Carrie Florizone, for the majority of this report. I do, however, have some comments at the very end with regards to some new news based on a meeting that I attended on Thursday.
Good evening. So there was some discussion that started last spring about a regional economic development alliance or an advocate. A letter was sent out in the fall to several neighboring municipalities for support. We did not hear back from them. However, we're continuing to work with the province and Community Futures West Yellowhead on several initiatives, and there is a group of economic development representatives from several municipalities that meet on a approximately quarterly basis to discuss initiatives and where we can support each other. So the reason I'm here today is just to update you on where that kind of went and where we're at. There was also a event recently in Drayton Valley on electric vehicles, and I believe Martino has some exciting opportunities there arising from that.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, just as a quick update verbally, as we don't have time to put into the report, Bruce Thompson and myself attended, Bruce Thompson, your environmental services and fleet manager, attended the Regional Economic Development Energy Futures Community Accelerator venture that took place at the Clean Energy Center, CETC, Clean Energy and Technology Center within Drayton Valley. With that, we were able, through communications with administration from across the Northwest, ranging from High Level, Grand Prairie, Fort St. John, Jasper, etc., and I believe down to Clearwater, to establish the ability with nonprofit societies that have successfully installed regional charging station networks, which have also been primarily funded by provincial and federal governments in the past 10 years, have them agree to do a funded workshop in Edson. I've asked them for details, and I said that I would bring this forward as a general information piece. And in fact, I want to provide you with a report next committee meeting with details of what that would involve. But essentially, we would be able to, as a host at least, that would be the extent of our cost, for this, able to have those nonprofits that have put in both the Kootenays plan, the Peaks to Prairies plan, which spans all of southern Alberta, and then basically have worked through the networks all the way through to Hope, BC, at various stages. Look to allow us to work with the AUMA and RMA Municipal Clean Energy Center to look at funding options that we could provide to government to see existing funding, which is for EV within the area, brought to a regional group, and then to have those municipal officials brought in so that we could actually get a working group in place, make the applications, provide a term of reference. That, of course, is if we have support from Edson Council, but I'm going to be providing you a detailed report here on the 24th with information directly from those nonprofit agencies for you to consider if you would like to be the sponsor or the host to see this kick off within our northern region, northwestern region.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I couldn't be happier. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Just wonderful that you worked on that. And we'll have so much power as a whole group like that. It really makes a world of difference. And while you're still at that group, I've been talking to Martin Long, and he really is for regional development. And I'd really like to see a remat working here to recycle mattresses. So maybe you can talk to your counterparts that that's the next project. Perfect.
Councillor Sorensen?
Well, I couldn't be more disappointed and insulted that our neighboring communities couldn't even reply to our letter. I find that extremely insulting, and can't wait to meet them.
Mayor Sahara.
Thank you. Through to Councillor Sorensen's point, when we were having these discussions at the regional mayor level, that was right before the provincial budget came down. If you look at the date of that letter, provincial budget came down after that for 2019, and at around that time, and we heard that funding for regional economic development alliances were being cut. So I think that kind of changed perspective. Having said that, I haven't actually engaged with the regional mayors group on this particular item since then. But I do know that we are going to be having supper with the Minister of Municipal Affairs in 2 weeks, and I will be speaking to them, giving them a hard time as to why they couldn't even send an email back as to their perspective. I think, as we know with this council, it's been a very hectic time for us trying to deal with the ramifications of the provincial budgets and some of the other work that we're doing as municipalities. So we'll see what they have to say when I meet with them here in a couple of weeks.
Councilor Bear?
Through the chair to administration, I was also disappointed that they couldn't reply, and I would hope that if they were to send us a letter that we would not be so stagnant on it in their reply. I am pleased though, Martino, about your report on the EV chargers, and that if the economic development position wasn't the key to start this and to keep our region working together and to build this up together, then if that's the first thing that we need to do to work together, then I'm very much in support of working together, as I mentioned previously. So, thank you.
Councilor Chenard, short?
I am very excited, like Councillor Wilkinson. I am not disappointed because what their answer was, I agree with the mayor's comment. It was right after the budget. The idea was great because I know, as the rest of us, we know councils from different areas. So I believe that they will respond in time, but economic development, you can talk about it, but if there's nothing to develop, what's the point of it? Like, you know, there is all kinds of ideas and we can brainstorm, but we were earlier talking about airports and stealing from them. So we don't want to meet when they might be watching us and saying, we don't want to meet with those guys. So I think we have to be nice. But I mean, that was, if they're watching us, we did make those comments. So I'm excited that it can move forward. I agree with the mayor. You're over meeting with the other mayors, and in interest of whatever comes up, we could encourage them. And, you know, openly say, okay, it's in Drayton Valley, they did their alternative power, Rocky's doing something else. They may support us in our airport, so I believe as us meeting as a group, we can approach it differently and say, you know what, we're in support of this, but also in the region support our airport and trade-off, we can help them. So I think we can move forward with it.
Councilor Sorensen.
Through the chair to Martino, on a positive note, I am in agreement or supportive of the regional electric vehicle stations. So I'm full support of you proceeding forward with that. I am a little hesitant, or I'll be careful to make sure that we're not stepping on the toes of commercial providers for charging stations. But I think it's worth moving forward on.
Go ahead, Martino.
And Mr. Chairman, just as a note too, if we look at the success that's been done in the Kootenays area, as well as in the passes, and then as well as the Peak to Prairies, one of the biggest benefits of that is not necessarily places which Edson will be a very successful market-driven location for EV chargers, but providing that network so that you could stop in Evansburg, that you could stop in Fox Creek, and making it a place where now we've become a tourism location where people are enticed to go. And so, of course, you know, we have a big benefit of that being ideally located, but of course, having that draw in that network, you would see places like Lethbridge very well used, Tabor well used positionally, Cardston not so much, but guess what? They also have EV chargers in the Peaks to Prairies because you need the network to make it all work and make people feel comfortable with coming in a tourism session. So it really moves the entire region forward. So, yeah.
Here's Sarah.
Through the chair to Martino, I'm very excited about this. I'm on Twitter. I don't know how many people are on Twitter for council, but I do get people with electric vehicles tweeting me wondering what the heck's going on in Edson because there's not enough charging stations. Try to direct them to the private operators, but I know that there are people out there that are looking to get to Jasper in particular, and they are concerned that they're not going to be able to make it. So.
It's just a comment, but it was just on the news where they drove across Canada on Highway 1 just to prove that all the superchargers are there and everything. So, I mean, really, let's get on the bandwagon so they're driving up this way.
Councilor Chenard.
Is Highway 1 the other Trans-Canada Highway?
I know you're
It
on,
is.
on the wrong committee, but there is.
We may lose a smart car in the potholes, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have no comments. I think we just need to look at it and do it. I'm in favor for the charges, but I don't want us paying for our electricity, so I'd rather see somebody else put it in and they pay for the electricity that's going to be going over there and not on our bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, that's one of the ideal things about this is that we do actually engage directly with the general service providers like Fortis and ATCO. So I'll try and make sure that we have those level of details for you to consider at our next report.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on then. Corporate services, no information items. Sundry questions from media and public.
I just have a few questions with regards to the road study comment. So first of all, I'm just wondering what the 2020 road recap budget is in total.
1.2 million.
So 1.2, okay.
Yeah.
And so what does that budget involve? Is it just filling in the potholes, or is there another?
So, and administration can jump in here. So we have a maintenance budget as part of our roads budget. That's operational costs. So that's the pothole filling.
Okay.
The road recapping is more fresh blacktop on sections of road. And then what they're talking about too is having, with the study, is to look at that subsurface. We have been patching, but we haven't done any hard sections of paving in our community for, I think, at least a year, maybe 2 years. I think we did 2 years ago just to finish up some projects, but yeah.
Okay, so there was none done last year? That was my other question.
Yeah, we had none done last year. We had some unexpected costs with our wastewater treatment plant. If you recall, we had got stuck with an additional $2 million worth of funding for it that the province didn't pay for their portion of that wastewater treatment plant, which is still outstanding. So, and we continue to work on that. So those funds helped offset that.
Okay, so it's been 2 years since any of this kind of work has been done, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Administration, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, thank you, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Am I allowed to make a comment?
No.
Good.
Good job, Chair.
Do you have anything else?
That's everything.
That's it? Great. Okay, can I have a motion to go closed meeting?
No.
Property Development FY S24-1A and 25-1C. Councillor Curry makes that motion. All in favor? Have a motion for adjournment. Councillor Chenard, all in favor?
Just watch the speed.
Carried.
He's got my voice covered.